Microsoft Word 2003, Organizing Documents. As we get into more of the advanced features that we have with Word 2003, one thing you're going to find with your large documents is that sometimes you've got a ton of content. What if you want to find a certain page that has something, maybe a figure or a certain heading? Well, you can use tables of contents and tables of figures to create hyperlinks to maneuver between them. As part of our goal to organize our documents to make them easier to manipulate or easier to travel within, especially large documents, we're going to look at how to create a table of contents that's then hyperlinked to different portions of your document, as well as if you got pictures or figures or whatever it is, you can also create a table of figures as well, which allows you to jump to those particular locations. When we get into the more advanced features of Word and how we can utilize the built-in tools to really help us create our incredible documents that we're looking for, our masterpieces, one of the ones I really enjoy is the ability for us to create table of contents or table of figures based upon text and the way that you've put in your headings and you format it automatically, or auto-magically, as a friend of mine likes to say. Now what I've got here is our History of Instruments document, only I've kind of preloaded it so that way it's going to create an outline of some sort. Now the way that this works is, if you notice, I've got my title. If I select here, I can look up here and it says this is a title. Come down here, Ancient History, that's heading 1. And of course I got my little Latin that's been generated here. Then I've got my heading 2s, and even down here, if I keep scrolling, eventually in the Middle Ages get down to the Renaissance, and here's the Masters, and they of course are going to be heading 3. So I'm breaking my document up into different headings. You can do it by pages, a whole bunch of different things. So the way that this works, let me go ahead and scroll up here to the top again, is that you typically will either create a different page. I usually go right to the front of here's my title, and I'm going to want to create a table of contents for my entire document, on which page everything is, that kind of thing. So I come up here. The first thing you're going to go to is Insert, Reference, Index, and Tables. Now when you do that, it's going to give you these 4 tabs: the index, table of contents, table of figures, and table of authorities. Now we'll show you in a separate video how indexing works and all that cool stuff. But the two that we're going to concentrate here on: table of contents, table of figures. Table of authorities is really when you are working in the legal world. Now this is kind of beyond the scope of this particular video series. Number one, I don't know all that much about law and why you use certain statutes and other authorities and the categories that you have. But if you are doing legal documentation, it will allow you to do table of authorities based on cases, treaties, regulations, constitutional provisions and provos and quid pro quos and all that kind of stuff, all under the table of authority. So just be aware, it's there, and if you work in that legal firm or in a legal firm or you're a paralegal, this will be a real big help to you. But let's go back to table of contents. We're going to start off with this one, and you'll notice it says there's a few things that we can do here. You have your print preview of what it's going to look like. Right now you can see that your heading 1s or your titles are going to be in a certain font. Then here's your title, here's your page number. Do you want to show the page numbers? Do you right align the page numbers? You can deselect that and it'll put them right next to it. This is heading 1, that's page 1, title is on 1. Heading 2 is on page 3, heading 3 maybe on page 5. Those type of things. I typically like to right align the numbers to kind of keep them away from the information here. You can show page numbers or not. I can take them off or put them back on. My tab leader is this, what happens between my text and the tabbed over version of my page number. So I can come over here and I can use none, or I can use my dashed lines, or I can use an underline. So whatever looks good for you, you can go ahead and do that. And this is, by the way, based on your template, the way that you've designed your document. In this case, I've got a simple one. But watch this. In general, I can change the formats to something that's a little bit more template driven, like classic. So notice it goes, ooh, it changes it. And this is what your heading will look like. And you can add and again, you can add tab leaders again here, depending on how you want to do that. You can also pick distinctive. This is one that I've used quite a bit. You can also do formal. You can do simple. Whatever way you want to do it. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and I think I used classic. Yeah, that's good. And I'm going to use the dash line for that. And notice also If you are saving this for a web page, because typically headers are going to be your links to your portion of a document in the table of contents page for your web page, this would be a hyperlink that you could use and click on it, and then it would take you to that portion of the web page that has this information. That's pretty sweet. So you can do that as well. Show the levels, how many levels. In this case, it already has seen my document and said, you know what, you've got 3 levels. You got a heading 1, 2, and 3. So you want to show levels. You can hide levels. I can move down to 2 or go up to 4 if I want. I can change that. You can also show the outlining toolbar. Now what this is going to be important for is right now, if you notice, let me roll down here a little bit. It's not on I've got my standard toolbar, my formatting toolbar, but if I want to show my outlining toolbar, it will add it right here. Now this is going to be important when I want to update my table of contents, and we'll see that in just a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and show my outlining toolbar. Now there are options that you can choose. Click on options and you'll notice it says, all right, you want the styles. The available styles right now are heading 1, heading 2, and heading 3. What table of contents level do you want? Level 1, level 2, level 3. If I increase this to a different level, all that means is my heading 3, instead of being like heading 1 and then it's over a little bit to heading 2 and then a little bit over to heading 3, it would bump it over one more level. So it's, you know, maybe a way for you to outline the heading 3 just a little bit. You can also do table entry fields and utilize those as well as part of your outlining. That's fine. So I click OK. We'll just keep it the way it is. Now watch this. I go ahead and I click OK. And right in front of the history of instruments, I now have my history of instruments, my title page, and of course it is linked. I can hit, notice it gives me my little tooltip. If I hit Control and click, it will take me to that link. See? Drop me down right there. Now let me roll over. Now if I want to go to the Persians and the Greeks, Control, click, and it takes me to Persian and Greeks. Very nifty feature, and it's hyperlinked, so I can set it to where I want to. And if I want to publish this in a web page, it's going to be able to, you know, send it to the whatever page we have. Now, one thing that a lot of people do is go, well, wait a minute, what if I don't want this on the same page? Not a problem. All you need to do is you go ahead and insert a page break right here. If I hit Control Enter, and I'll come up here, and I'll say, all right, it still says that it's on page 1 and the ancient history is on page 1. What would I need to do? I would need to update my table of contents. When I do this, do you want to update the page numbers only or update the entire table? Well, let's go ahead and update the entire table. Now if I do the page numbers and I click OK, notice it said, okay, just the page numbers. I didn't change anything over here. Now where would that make a difference? Well, for example, let's say I've got my history of instruments, I've got all this information. I'm going to come down here to modern times. I haven't really outlined it too well. So I come over here, Control click, takes me down to modern times, and I'm on page 5 here. And let's say at the end of this paragraph, which describes modern times, even though it's in Latin, I'll go ahead and say I want to use a heading 2, come up here to my styles, heading 2, and I type in Big Band Era. So I now have a new title, subheading here, heading 2, Big Band Era under Modern Times. And let's say we scroll down just a little bit and we say that after this particular paragraph, we start talking about some of the big band era instrument players. So let's say we want to put in Glenn Miller, very famous big band leader, trombone player. So we take Glenn Miller, come up here, and I say I want that to be a heading 3. So now Glenn Miller's a heading 3. So we come down here, and I hit enter, and I type in Benny Goodman, who was a famous clarinet player, excellent, loved him. Part of the reason why I was a clarinet player. So heading 3, Benny Goodman, loved that music. So now I have, notice, Benny Goodman, Glenn Miller, these are all heading 3s. And up here, I've got the big band era. So I've now added to my table of contents. So now if I come over here, grab this and scroll all the way up to the top, you'll notice this, I've still got my table of contents, but it ends at modern times. Well, it sounds like to me I need to, you got it, update my table of contents. So I come over here and I hit update table of contents, and it says, do you want to update the page numbers only? No, 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 no. I want to update the entire table. I want it to go through, find my headings, and add it. So I click OK. Bada bing, bada boom. Look at that. Modern times. But here's my big band era. Here's my Glenn Miller. And here's my Benny Goodman. So I can see, and it even added the page numbers. It did everything I needed to do. And now my table of contents is now complete. And I could, even if I want to, just hit enter right here. Come up here and just type in a style here, and you got your different levels that you have. Body text is what we could use for a table of contents, and I can say table of contents. So now a table of contents, it's a body text. It doesn't have a level, it doesn't have a page number assigned to it. It's just right here, table of contents. And then of course I could create a cover page if I wanted to and do some other things. But you can see this is great for your documents, especially really long pages of documents. And as long as you've used headers and information like that, it's able to go in behind you and then just simply create these table of contents, which is quite cool. Now another table that you might want to be able to do is perhaps maybe you want to create a table of figures on your document. So what we'll have to do first off is obviously add some figures to our particular thing. So let's go ahead and scroll on down here. And we're going to ancient history, but let's get to the Middle Ages, because here's where we're going to find like the Renaissance and the Masters. And let's go ahead and put in a picture here. We'll insert a picture right here. Go to picture, and of course this is a review. We all know how to insert pictures from file. And let's put Antonio Stradivari, who has made the infamous Stradivarius violins, cellos, and all those things. So we'll go ahead and insert that one. And we got a picture of him right there. Now what we can do is, of course, let me adjust the size of this just a little bit. Go ahead and add an enter right there. I'm going to have to format my picture, so I allow the text to come in tight. And to make sure that the layout is set. Okay, great. All right, we're set up and ready to go. So now this is obviously can be considered a figure that we have right here. And so now I'm going to add that one there. I'll come back and fix it here in just a second. And modern time, well, no, the Craftsman will come over here. And we'll hit enter and add another picture so we can show these figures. Picture from file. And these are called sack butts, which is where, I know, funny name, but this is where we got our trombones from. So let's go ahead and hit enter there. And so we have our figures here. So we now have our figures in place, and now we're going to want to add a figure index right here, or at the, we can put it at the end, or we can put it up at the top of our page. So how do we do that? Well, two things. One is I just remember when I was formatting this picture, I think I did it with tight. Yeah. To make sure that the figures work correctly, you're going to want to use inline with text. Now you can use advanced and say how it works in line with text and things like that, picture position, things like that. But we'll just stick with this, and what that's going to do is pop this down, and so we can literally just come over here and backspace over, so that way it comes down to here. Now I select the photo or the picture right here. I click Insert, Reference, Caption. Now when I do that, it's going to come up and say, all right, this is figure 1. This is the first one we're doing. The label is it's a figure. Now there are a couple things it can be. It could be an equation. It could be a table. There could be a couple things for the caption, because you could say this is an equation or this is a table. We'll stick with figure. Position it below the selected item. Now we can exclude the label from the caption. In other words, if you don't want it to say figure 1, you can take away the figure part of it, and it'll just put 1, caption 1, and then you can type whatever we want. But that's okay. Figure 1 works for us. We go ahead and click numbering. Just allows you. Do you want to use 1, 2, and 3? Do you want to include chapter number, separators? Figure 2, 1, table 1A. No, we don't need to do that. We'll stick with the standard. You can use A, B, and C if you want table A, B, and C. We'll just stick with the standard one right there. So it looks like that. We click OK. Figure 1 is Antonio Stradivari. Now, hopefully I spelled the gentleman's name correctly. If not, well, that's what the lookup tools are for spelling. Then I'll come down here and I'll click on this picture. Also say Insert, Reference, Caption, Figure 2. All right, sounds good. Same thing. Below selected item, click OK. Figure 2 is sack butts. Yes, that's what they're called. That's a soprano alto, tenor, and bass. So now I've got these figures now in place. Figure 2, Figure 1. So I can scroll all the way up here, and I can come up to underneath my table of contents that I have here. And I'm going to go ahead and change, instead of a title, because I can always just say table of figures. Hit enter. And change that now to a normal text. And now I'm going to insert, reference, index and tables. Here's my table of contents, my index, table authorities. I want a table of figures. Figure 1, do I want it to be from the template? This is similar to what we saw with our other ones. I want it classic. I want my tab leader to be that. Or actually, I think I use this. Okay. And then it gives you the text, Figure 1, and what page number it's on. The web preview is the same thing. So you click OK, and look at that. Here's your table of figures. Got my table of contents. Here's my table of figures. And once again, I can use my hyperlinks by using Control and click to go to my sackbuts. And there they are. Soprano, alto, tenor, and bass. So again, table of contents, very powerful. Table of figures, very powerful. Allows us to manipulate our document so that we can travel in, multiple pages all the way to page 235 to this particular thing. Very good for your larger documents. Plus, think about this. If you're starting to use these tools, your friends, your coworkers, your peers are going to be like, wow, I didn't know you could do that. How do you do that? And you can show them just like I showed you. It's very simple. Just use the tools that Word 2003 gives to you. Well, here we accomplish one of our goals, and that is to find out better ways of manipulating and maneuvering within our documents by organizing them into tables, like tables of contents, where we can use headings or different types of portions of our document to go in and create these automatic table of contents. We can also use, of course, links to maneuver between our different areas and headings. We also saw how we can do this the same thing with figures. So you got those documents, the diagrams, you get the pictures, the photos, whatever it is, you can create this table of figures, which could also be a table of your captions, whatever it is, your equations, your tables, those things, and you can link them again with those hyperlinks and be able to maneuver and travel in your big, huge documents. This is a very cool feature of Word 2003. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.